Welcome back to the continuation of the story, The Woman with Two Skins. So we stopped where they were preparing for a match. So on the day of the match, the water juju told the king's son that he needed to be in the list of freed, and that his juju was so powerful that even the strongest and best wrestlers in the country would not be able to stand up against him for even a few minutes. Wow! All the people of the country came to see the great contest. To the winner of which the king promised to present prizes of clothes and money and all that the strongest man wished to have. When they saw the king's son, whom nobody knew, they laughed and said, "Who is this little boy, who can have no charms against us?" But when they came to rescue him, very soon they found out that there was no match for him. The boy was very strong indeed, handsome and elegant. And then the people began to think, and they noticed he looked like their king. After wrestling for the greatest part of the day, the king's son was declared the winner, having thrown everyone who had stood up against him. In fact, some of his opponents had been badly hurt and had their arms and ribs broken owing to the tremendous strength of the boy. After the match was over, the king presented him with clothes and money as he promised, and invited him to dine with him in the evening. The boy gladly accepted his father's invitation, and after he had a quick wash in the river, put on his clothes and went up to the palace, where he found the head chief of the country and some of the king's most favored wives. Then they sat down to their meal, and the king had his own son, whom he did not know, sitting next to him on the other side. The boy was sitting next to the jealous wife, who had been the cause of all the troubles. All through the dinner, the woman was doing her best to make friends with the boy, with whom she had fallen violently in love with on account of his physique and his strength. He is now the best wrestler in the country. The woman thought to herself, "I'll have this boy to myself as my husband. Seeing that my husband is now old, and he will surely soon die." The boy, however, he was wise enough and strong at the same time. He was aware of everything the jealous woman had done, and although he pretended to be very flattered at her advances, he followed suit and played along. He did not respond very readily and went home as soon as he could. When he returned to the water juju man's house, he told him everything that happened, and the man said, "As you are now in high favor with the king, you must go to him tomorrow and beg a favor from him. The favor you will ask is that all the country shall be called together, and that a certain case shall be tried, and that when the case is finished, the man or woman who is found to be in the wrong shall be killed by the boss before all the people." So the following morning, the boy went to the king, who readily granted his request, and at once sent all around the country, appointed a day for all the people to come in and hear the case tried. Then the boy went back to the water juju man, who told him to go to his mother and tell her who he was, and that when the day of the trial arrived, she was to take off her ugly skin and appear in all her beauty, for the time had come where she needs no longer to wear the ugly skin. This the son did. When the day of trial arrived, Adirha sat in the corner of the square, and nobody recognized the beautiful stranger as the spider's daughter. Her son, who sat down next to her and brought his sister with him, immediately his mother saw her. She said, "This must be my daughter, whom I had long mourned as dead," and embraced her most affectionately. The king and his head wife then arrived and sat on stools in the middle of the square. All the salutations was done, and the usual greetings. The king then addressed the people and said that he had called them together to hear a story at the request of the young man, whom had been the victor of the wrestling, and who had promised that if, on the other hand, the case was decided in the boy's favor, then the other party would be killed, even though it were himself or one of his wives. Whoever it was would have to be taken his or her place on the killing stone and have their heads cut off by the apples. For this all the people agreed and said they would like to hear what the young man had to say. The young man then walked round the square and bowed to the king and the people and asked the questions, "Am I not worthy to be the son of any chief in the country?" And all the people answered yes. The boy then brought his sister out into the middle, leading her by the hand. She was a beautiful girl and well-made. When everyone had looked at her, he said, "Is not my sister worthy to be any chief's daughter?" And the people replied that she is worthy of being one of the king's daughter even. Then he called his mother Adirha, and she came out looking very beautiful with her best clothes and beads on. And all the people cheered as they have never seen a finer woman. The boy then asked them, "Is this woman worthy of being a king's wife?" And a shout went up from everyone present that she would be a proper wife for the king, and looked as if she would be the mother of plenty of fine, healthy sons. Then the boy pointed out the jealous woman who was sitting next to the king and told the people his story, how that his mother was ill-treated because she had two skins, and that she was the spider's daughter. How she was married to the king, and how the head wife was jealous and had made a bad juju for the king, which made him forget his wife. How she had persuaded the king to throw himself and his sister into the river, which as they all knew had been done. But the water juju had saved both of them and had brought them up. Then the boy said, "I leave the king and all of you people to judge my case. If I had done wrong, let me be killed on the stone by the apples. If on the other hand the woman had done evil, then let the apples deal with her as you may decide." When the king knew that the wrestler was his son, he was very glad and told the apples to take the jealous woman away and punish her in accordance with their laws. The apples decided that the woman was a witch, so they took her into the forest and tied her up to a stake and gave her 200 lashes with a whip made from hippopotamus hide, and they burned her alive, so that she should not make any more troubles as her ashes were thrown into the river. The king then embraces his wife and daughter and told all the people that she, Adirha, was his proper wife and would be the queen for the future. When the travels was over, Adirha was dressed in fine clothes and beads and carried back in state to the palace by the king's servants. How might the king give a big that night? The king gave a big feast to all his subjects and told them how glad he was to get back his beautiful wife, whom he had never known properly before. Also his son, who was stronger than all men, and his fine daughter. The feast continued for 160 days, and the king made a law that if any woman was found getting medicine against her husband, she should be killed at once. Then the king built 3 compounds and placed many slaves in there, both men and women. 1 compound he gave to his wife, another to his son, and the 3rd he gave to his daughter. They all lived together quite happily for some years, until the king died, when his son came to the throne and ruled in his stead. That is the end of my story. See you next.